Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever it is that you're watching this. You'll have noticed that this is not morning prayer from St Wilfrid's in Calverley. We're taking the opportunity this summer to have a slight break from that, not from prayer of course, just from doing it on the video. And we've got a short series in which we're going to be exploring faith and work and how our life in Christ interacts with what we do out there, 9 to 5, or whenever our working hours are. For the first in our series this summer on work and faith, I shall be talking to Richard Jobs, who many of you will know, who's preached here a few times. Richard.
Cool. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
So that's what we're doing. Tell us a little about you first. I'm going to ask everybody the same three questions, but the first bit is what do you do? Obviously I sleep here.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're allowed out.
I am allowed out on occasion, and when I'm allowed out, during daylight hours, I'm a solicitor and a partner at a commercial law firm. I'm a litigator, so I deal with disputes, largely in relation to land, and that's a big part of my job.
What are you actually doing during the week? How much of that time is you sat on your own reading and thinking? How much of that is talking to colleagues? How much of that is adversarial? What's the mix?
Most of the time is dealing with other people, to be honest. Whether there's very little. Occasionally I do work at home and get my head down, but most of the time I'm in the office. I'm talking to colleagues. I'm talking to people on other sides of cases. I'm managing other members of staff, attending meetings, attending court appointments. It's quite social actually. It's very much involved with others. I don't spend most of my time staring at my navel and thinking deep legal thoughts, to the extent I'm capable of that.
So when we get you to do that for our sermons, that's extra and separate.
That's a special one-off for you, yeah.
Bless you for that. We haven't prepped all of these questions, so I'm hoping not to surprise you too much. Okay. Do you like doing your job?
I do like my job. I get a lot of pleasure out of it. That doesn't mean it's without stresses and strains. I think there's always going to be challenges with any job. But I do think at the end of the day, it's a good and decent calling. I am doing something useful. I'm resolving disputes, so a bit of a peacemaker. Obviously it's very commercial work, but I don't think that makes it bad. No. I think, we're trying to make the world work a little better. So I do genuinely feel like I get quite a lot out of my work. And there's also a lot of other things that come from it, a lot of friendships. And all of those sorts of things. You
said calling. That's an interesting word. We talk a lot about calling here at church. Do you feel called to your work? Is it the thing that you're supposed to be doing? One of the things you're supposed to be doing?
I think it is one of the things I'm supposed to be doing. I feel gifted and good at it. So I feel like my skills are naturally aligned with it. I'm sure if you asked teenage Richard, he would much prefer that I was, a musician or, a superhero or something like that. But on the basis that none of those opportunities really opened up to me,
right?
Absence of superpowers, etc., etc. Being a solicitor, what seems to be a natural, pragmatic sort of middle ground.
Okay, well, it's good. And I think, that's important as well, because we talk a lot about calling for churchy things, but it's really important to affirm that you're not any less called to do any number of things, even the things we're paid for. Okay.
And I actually do think it's quite useful to have those external experiences, even when I am talking in church. So, because I think it shapes and influences a lot of what I have to say there and how I interact with my faith.
Good. Right. Well, we're going to launch into our three questions now. Everybody who appears in one of these will be answering these three questions. So, first one, how has your faith helped you at work? What difference does it make?
When I came to faith, and I did come to faith relatively late in life, so we're talking about, probably about 4 years ago now, work is and was then a very important part of my life, my whole psychology really, and my identity. And I did very much feel that I wanted faith to very much speak to that, as to how I should be carrying out my work, whether my work is something I should be doing. And I think probably the biggest difference that I think faith has probably given my professional life is it's probably given it a little bit more context. I think for a lot of professionals, we can become quite selfish and focused on ourselves. We talk a lot about our achievements, our ambitions, and I'm not saying I've overcome all of those challenges, but I think faith enables me to see things in a broader picture and see them more as a gift, rather than trying to clutch on to what I see as my achievements or things that I have brought about. I think I've come to appreciate I have been gifted certain opportunities, certain things have come about through certain circumstances, the time I've been born into, the social context, whatever else. So I've been very, very fortunate in that. I don't think I have worked hard as well, but I can't sit there and say this is all down to me.
Okay.
And I think that's a useful thing that I think faith has enabled me to step back and think, actually, I don't need to grasp so much. It can go through my hands and I can let go of it a little bit more because I'm not wholly responsible for this.
Okay, so something about God's sovereignty, whatever that means.
Yeah.
About faith. And maybe I picked up something there about maybe the idolatry of career.
Yeah. I mean, I think that can be really, I think for a lot of people, it can be quite poisonous, I think, sometimes to have your entire identity caught up with career ambitions and striving for what are sometimes the wrong reasons. It's not always easy to unpack those, and I don't think it's inherently wrong to be ambitious or to try and move forward or make the most of opportunities when they present themselves.
Perhaps it's about ends and means, for the career to be an end in itself.
I think so, and I think when it really starts to distort your notion of yourself and others and why you're doing it, that's when it becomes really problematic. So for me, faith really enables me to step back when I'm, conscious of it and try and see this a little less than being all about me.
Okay, a broader perspective. Yeah. I have another thought on that. You talk about self. It strikes me that you're quite good at your job. You've done reasonably well. Yeah. And with that comes competence and self-assuredness and things like that. And one of the things that people who are good at the things that they do, one of the faith issues we can have is coming to rely on ourselves when God calls us to rely on Him. And it can be hard to do that when actually day to day you don't need to because you're already good at it. I don't know.
I think sometimes when you kind of get to that point where you're very much reliant on yourself, you can, it becomes, quite unhealthy because I think, and certainly my work, and I think this is a trait I recognise myself, I'm quite a perfectionist.
Right.
So I do feel like I'm good at my job. I'm not perfect at my job. There's always going to be bits where I will look back and reflect and think, I have learnt that, I've evolved. And I think that's a very important part of faith, to actually be able to adapt and evolve and
humility.
Humility to learn and keep moving forward. So I think, I think that is quite an important part of the experience of just been knowing that there's always room to learn and a little bit of self-compassion when it comes to that, because I think I know when I'm doing a good job. I also know when maybe I'm falling short.
Okay.
Not always.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe there's times when I thought I was doing a great job and I was falling short, but
We might come back to that self-compassion later. I think that's an interesting thing to explore as well. Here's a question then, kind of the inverse. How has work helped you with faith?
as I say, I think when I came to faith, my working life was a big part of what I wanted to almost process through my faith, or try and understand, and understand whether it was the right thing I should be doing. Should I give up my work and go and live in a monastery or something like that? It was.
Just imagine your wife would have had some questions for us about
I think
that.
the kids would have wondered where I'd got to.
Yeah.
But and I think it was natural to remain where I was. I think, as I say, I feel I'm quite good and called to my job. But I think work does bring with it, as well as its challenges, I think it brings a sense of identity and worth and pride. That's certainly always what I saw with my parents, my grandparents, when they worked. And I think through all of those things, I see my working life, I appreciate my working life will come to an end at some point. And it's not the sort of be all and end all, but I think it enables me to see myself fitting in a broader story and picture. Because certainly when I read the Bible, there's a lot in there about work and working characters. Daniel working in the court of a foreign land. We have Jesus as a carpenter. We've got St. Paul as a tent maker.
There's that happy jailer.
Yeah, there's a great story in the book of Acts about a jailer who jails Paul and Silas, and then all of a sudden, after an earthquake, it's all thrown open, and the jailer comes to faith and starts to really treat his prisoners and himself with a whole great degree of compassion and understanding, and that's an amazing story. So the Bible is, I think sometimes we might approach faith and think faith is a separate thing to work.
Yes, but it can't be, can it? If faith is about your life and you work in your life, they must interact.
Yeah, I think that's right. So you look at those stories in the Bible, and these were hard-headed, realistic people who had to live in the world as part of the world.
Okay. So your work gives you another sphere in which your faith is relevant and works and helps. It has to.
I think so, yeah. So
makes it richer and deeper.
It does, because it's part of my day-to-day existence and life. It's not like there's just a good part of my life where I might sit and pray and read the Bible, and then there's the bad part, which is just the rest of it.
No. Good. Okay. Okay, so last question is, how has the church helped you with this work-faith connection, and how could we do more, do you think?
I think the church has helped, actually even this sitting here and talking to you now, sometimes is a really good way of actually thinking about these things, bringing them to the forefront, praying about them. And I find that even in itself a useful thing to remind me and make me take a step back, as compared to sometimes when I'm caught in the moment and I've just been torn along with things. I think the church, one of the most important things is it provides a community of workers that I'm part of, and some of them are workers, some people are pre-work, if they're children, some people have retired, some people are homemakers, but it's that sense of community. And for those who are workers, you do get a sense of the rich tapestry of certainly life in Calverley and beyond, of all the different things that people are doing, and the noble callings, the challenges, the stresses and the strains. I think the church is great at providing that sort of sense of community.
Good.
I think things that could maybe we could look at in a slightly different way. I think sometimes we approach Sunday services as almost like this hour in which we have this holy experience, and then we're sort of cast out of the church and go back to
off you go, get on with the rest of your lives.
The rest of our lives, when we're running around and being considerably less holy. And I think an important part of worship should be about setting setting everyone up to effectively continue to worship throughout the week, worship during their work, whatever their calling is, who they're helping, who they're serving, because the likelihood is whatever you're doing, you're going to be serving.
You've got to serve someone.
Yeah, absolutely.
As
As a great man said. So and I think as part of that, I think we've got to make sure that when people come to recognise their work in church services, and I think it is part of worship.
So we could perhaps speak more of that interaction between what we do here and what we let you all get up to out there.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, one of the things I certainly find fascinating is that idea in the early church where the congregations, each person would bring something from their livelihoods. So if you were a baker, you brought some bread. If you were a shepherd, you brought a sheepskin. And obviously, they ended up with all this strange assortment of things at the end of worship services. And I think over the years that kind of got stripped back, so it became, well, actually it might be a bit more helpful if you just gave us money, because there's only so much we can do with all these loaves of bread.
Yes, the electric and gas companies will not allow me to pay with sheepskins.
So I think when we come into church and we make that, if we put £10 or £5 or whatever it is in the tray, I think we should think of it as more than just simply a cash transaction. It's actually something broader. It's actually the offering up of our labours throughout the whole week. And I feel like when I come into church, I'm bringing the weight of my week, the good things, the bad things, the things that are causing me anxiety, and it's all kind of part of it. And I think that's what a lot of people are kind of bringing with them when they come to church and worship.
Yeah, I remember thinking that when I used to give 10% of my pay as a teacher, and it would come off like first thing. And I remember seeing that connection between the pay slip and the bank statement, that my work was, that God was with me in my work as a teacher, but also that because I was taking a part of what I was paid for there, all of that somehow contributed to what I was able to bring to church. And seeing those two transactions happen simultaneously
I think that's very true.
Yeah,
that's very true.
And also you bring what you do as well. You've been doing some pro bono work on legal contracts for us, which is nice that people can still, and many people do, offer their skills, their services, professional or otherwise, to help the community get along.
No, I think that's important. And I do, as part of work, also do occasional pro bono work where I help out needy causes. I'm involved with a charity committee at work. So there's all those things that make it worthwhile, I think.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes. All things can be redeemed and made part of that kingdom work.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Richard.
Yeah, it's been great to join you.
Do look out for more of these over the next few weeks, and if you'd like to be part of this, if you do an interesting job or an interesting role and you'd like to share with us how that interacts with your faith, then it would be our pleasure to chat to you. God bless you out there, wherever you are. Thanks.